July 6th, 2001. It was a stiflingly hot day in Chicago, the kind of day where it's hard to breathe outside because of the heat. Now, it would have been a forgettable day for the Bradley family, just another summer day. But it's a day the family will always remember. Their lives forever changed after someone knocked at the girls' door while they were home alone. And they opened it. It's the day two little girls, two sisters, Tionda and Diamond Bradley, vanished. All they left behind was a voicemail and a family desperate for answers. The search for them was one of the biggest in Chicago history, and it wasn't just confined to city limits. The search for them stretched across the country and even the globe. Tionda, forever remembered as the slim little girl with a big personality who loved to dance and talk on the phone. Diamond, the shy younger sister who was always protected by big sister Tionda. Their family robbed of 20 years with the two little girls. They had hopes and dreams and goals. Who may have been the last person to see the Bradley sisters? What was on that voicemail they left behind? And what do we know 20 years later about the girls' disappearance? I'm Brianna Collins, and this is True Crime in Color.
Tionda would always dance for me. Even as a little girl, I would say, Tionda, dance. She would dance. So that particular day, she danced about 5 or 6 times. And she said, how much money you going to give me? She had a hand on her hip. Had a little white dress on, had her ponytails, her little white tights on. The foot of the tights had begun to get a little dirty because she, was barefoot. Well, not barefoot, but without shoes. And I was just watching her from head to toe. Tionda was my little everything. And that's the last time I seen Diamond and Tionda. The last time I ever laid eyes on them.
That's Shalia Bradley Smith. She's Tionda and Diamond Bradley's great aunt.
The mom's side or on the dad's side?
On the mom's side.
I get the sense that Shalia is a motherly figure. She describes herself as one of the older aunts of the Bradley family. And you can tell family is important to her. She talks a lot about spending time with her nieces in Chicago and bringing them back to Minnesota where she lives. She wanted to take Tionda and Diamond along with their sisters to Camp Snoopy, an amusement park that used to be at the Mall of America in Minnesota. There's probably a lot of things that Shalia wanted to do with her nieces, but she never got the chance to do them all. That's because her then 10-year-old niece, Tionda Bradley, and 3-year-old niece, Diamond Bradley, went missing in 2001. Shalia started off this episode describing the last day she saw her nieces. It was in March of 2000, more than 1 year before the sisters' disappearance. Shalia's family had gathered after the death of another family member, and she was in charge of watching the kids. Here's what she remembers from that day.
But I'm the only one in the house with maybe 7 or 8 kids. And Diamond was peeping around the corner at me because I had seen her earlier that day at my sister's house getting her hair combed. But she was peeping around the corner at me. She was really shy. So I said, girl, come on around the corner. And she wouldn't come. I said, I'm going to get you when I catch you. And, but Tionda was dancing for me to a certain song.
Now, while that might have been the last time that Shalia saw the girls, it was not the last time she talked to them. Tionda loved to talk on the phone.
Because I would call and say, Tionda, where Tracy at?
Tracy is the girl's mom.
She ain't here, she would say, and I say, okay. Then she'll call me back. And back then, phone bills are higher and cell phone bills are higher. And so I say, Tionda, you need to quit calling her because Tracy going to whoop you. No, she ain't. And I say, yes, she is, because I'm going to tell her, no, because I'm going to have the phone bill. She was.
Those little moments, Tionda's dancing and love of talking on the phone, Diamond's shyness and watching her get her hair combed, are memories that Shalia clings to now. Because July 6, 2001, Shalia and the rest of her family's world changed forever. She remembers exactly what she was doing the moment she learned Tionda and Diamond were missing.
We grilled that day. My daughter was home from school. She was in college. And my best friend was over. And just as I made my plate, which everybody else had their plate, just as I made my plate, I recall, biting the ribs and, licking the barbecue sauce off your fingers, and the phone rang. And I said, oh, boy. So I, answered the phone, and a dear friend to the family said, look at the news, Tracy Kids on TV. And when I turned there was a news reporter and a picture of Tionda and Diamond Bradley, and all I heard was that they are missing.
What were your initial thoughts? What was going through your brain when you saw that on the screen?
Well, initially, it was like, damn, I got to get to Chicago, but I know they're going to be, found there somewhere. And I called a couple of family members, about 4 family members, and didn't get an answer from anybody. Nobody answered their phone. And I, put the plate in the kitchen, and I told that male friend, let's go. When I got in the van, I was just so angry. I hit the mirror, the rearview mirror, and it broke off, and that's the way we drove to Chicago, without a mirror.
As Shalia drove, her mind raced. She thought about what could have happened to her nieces, and what would she find when she got to Chicago. When she did arrive, she only grew more worried as Tionda and Diamond still hadn't been found. Several family members had gathered at Tracy's apartment.
Tracy was not in the home at all. She was at the police department and had been at the police department for questioning. But I was just, asking what happened, just asking questions. Well, when did you last see him, or where could we look? It was like a zillion things running through my mind. Some of us, walked as far back as we could to check the railroad tracks. We looked across the street where that little cemetery was. We practically searched, just searched, and of course we went back to Tracy's apartment, addressed the media. There was a press conference that day.
Reporters began to arrive at the apartment complex. NBC5's Natalie Martinez was one of the reporters on scene that day. She had just started with the TV station months before the girls' disappearance. 20 years later, Natalie can't remember a lot of the details about the day, but she says she remembers it was a hot day and that the mood on the scene just felt off.
Nothing felt right about it, but I thought, how did this happen under anybody's watchful eye? It just, the feeling I had was uneasiness. I felt a lot of hurt.
Natalie also remembers that initially, family really wasn't too eager to talk to reporters.
I didn't like that we couldn't get any family to at least, talk to us and confirm anything. And at the same time, I'm thinking, they were probably the last people that you want to deal with. You really want to just talk to police. Yet at the same time, we're the ones that could offer hundreds of thousands of eyeballs on the newscast that day to see those little girls' faces, share the picture, share anything about them. What do they like to do? How do they like to talk? Where do they like to go? All of that information, I thought at the time, would have been great to share with viewers who could keep their eyes open, because so many people from all communities were invested in finding those little girls, and still are.
As Natalie and Shalia asked questions, Chicago police launched a massive manhunt in Tionda and Diamond's neighborhood. At the time of their disappearance, the sisters lived at the Lake Grove Village apartment complex. It's on the south side of Chicago near 35th and Cottage Grove. It's fixed income housing about 10 minutes from the city's downtown in a predominantly African-American neighborhood. The complex is made up of white boxy buildings. Some are smaller 3-story buildings, others larger 9 or 10-story buildings. I walked through the neighborhood with my mom on a quiet Sunday, April morning. I wanted to see what Tionda and Diamond saw and heard and smelled. There were a few people waiting at a bus stop. A man rode past us on his bike. A woman was unloading groceries from her car trunk. We walked over that same bridge Shalia did when she was looking for her nieces. We passed the railroad tracks and the small cemetery she mentioned. We even walked places police might have searched, like along the nearby Dan Ryan Expressway and Lake Michigan. Shalia also remembers that police were canvassing the neighborhoods in the days following the girl's disappearance. They were knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, searching the water and by air. And the girls' faces were on missing flyers. A Chicago Tribune article from July 9th, 2001, just days after the girls went missing, talks about the police bulletins distributed that showed blurry black and white photos of the girls. The sisters' pictures are side by side on it. Diamond on the left, her big dark eyes looking shyly into the camera. Her thick dark hair is split into 4 braids. The photos were taken from a home video of the girls dancing and smiling at a park. Big sister Tionda is on the right. Her long dark hair also braided, smiling brightly and confidently into the camera. A neighbor reportedly got better pictures of the girls from their mother and printed her own flyers in color to pass out. The girls were on the news night after night. The FBI was involved. It seemed like the whole city of Chicago was looking for them. As the days passed and the girls still hadn't turned up, Shalia decided to extend her stay in Chicago, and she launched her own investigation.
I would be out in the parking lot right at 35th Street at those developments and just watch the behavior of the neighborhood. You know, what time did the bus go up Cottage, come down Cottage, what time did the crossing guard get there. I watched the cars that parked, when they parked, and, you know, I would do that like starting at, let's just say 10 at night until 10 the next day, or morning, because I would write down and notice all the vehicles, who was working around there.
Days turned to weeks and then months, and there was still no sign of Tionda and Diamond. Police continued to question the girl's mom. Media reports from that time state that Tracy was, quote, uncooperative with police. But those same reports quote Tracy saying police weren't too kind to her. According to Natalie, back in 2001, reporters had a police liaison by the name of Pat Camden. She says early on, Pat told her Tracy was not being cooperative. I reached out to Chicago police to speak about this, but police said they didn't have much for me, and it's still an active investigation. I also requested an interview with Pat, who is no longer in that position, but I did not hear back. Meanwhile, Shalia kept the questions for Tracy coming.
I did have questions, but it didn't appear that she understood what I was asking, in the fact of, I think I was more interrogative, you know, because I'm one of the older aunts. I just needed to know, you know, what's going on, where are they, who did you leave them around, who could possibly have them, was you know, like into it with anybody? I mean, just all kind of dynamics were going on. I was myself personally was involved in what did family members know, because somebody had to know those kids, or somebody had to have been around them kids. I really didn't think that it was like a neighborhood abduction, like with a sex offender, because I couldn't see the average sex offender getting away with 2 children, let alone 1. And, you know, I felt that someone had been around who was familiar with those children, knew to persuade them to go with them. I have suspicions about everybody. I don't rule nobody out.
Natalie had questions too.
Why wouldn't you, as a mother, and I can say this now as being a mom, why wouldn't you be jumping on the mountaintops for anybody who would listen in any neighborhood, on every TV, radio, and newspaper station and newspaper? Why wouldn't you be yelling, help me find my babies? And that's kind of how things sort of turned. When the girl's mom had been helpful to police, she was interviewed for hours by them, but then it just turned, you know, they would tell us that she's just not cooperating with detectives.
Tracy isn't interviewed or quoted much in media reports. Shalia is. She's considered the family spokesperson. I found a few interviews with Tracy. Here's part of an interview she did with a Chicago TV station about 4 years after the girls went missing.
Yes, too. Now, aside from her grief, she's had to withstand the subtle and not so subtle accusations that she somehow was to blame for the girls' disappearance because she wasn't home.
I was going to work, be trying to make money, to survive for me and my kids. Pay rent like gas, you know what I'm saying? So any parent would do that.
And then there were days of questions from police.
I went through the process and everything, lie detector test. Okay, I passed it, but I was questioned for 72 hours in there.
Natalie says she never remembers speaking one-on-one with Tracy either. I wanted to talk to Tracy. I reached out to her on Facebook and I didn't hear back. I asked Shalia to connect us and was unsuccessful. Finally, I reached out to Foster. He's a private investigator who has been working this case for the past 20 years. He said he would reach out to Tracy and request an interview on my behalf. But if Tracy did do the interview, he would have to be on the call too. I still haven't heard back. About a month and a half after the girls went missing, police seemed to hit a dead end. They still hadn't found Tionda and Diamond, and no suspects were in custody. That's where Foster entered. He didn't want our conversation recorded, but he allowed me to take notes. He says hundreds of tips have come in since 2001, and he follows them all. It can take up to a week to confirm a tip. The investigation has taken him across 25 states and Morocco. He calls the case emotionally challenging, but says he has the patience of a Rottweiler to get to the nitty-gritty of what happened. Foster shared what we do know about the moments before Tionda and Diamond disappeared. According to Foster, Tionda and Diamond were inside of their home the morning of July 6, 2001. Their mother, Tracy, was gone. She called the house and she got no response. The girls were apparently planning for their sister's birthday and someone was supposed to come pick them up. The two left a note that they were going to a nearby store and school. But Shalia says it really wasn't like them to leave a note, and the note didn't even sound like Tionda. And there was one other thing they left behind.
But there was also a voicemail left on a phone that said that George was at the door. This is Tionda. We're going to the store to pick up the cake, and we're coming to pick you up from work, which ironically, Tionda's sister Vicky's birthday was the next day. Even having that, I can't really say George was behind the door, Diamond's dad, or George was behind the door, a good friend of Tracy.
There are two Georges that would make sense to be at the door. George Washington is Diamond's dad. Tracy also had a friend named George who would sometimes watch the girls. Police never determined which George Tionda was referring to on that voicemail. Both Shalia and Foster have similar suspicions about a suspect. They both shared the same name, but I won't be sharing it here as still no one has been charged in the girls' disappearance. Foster thinks it's someone close to Tracy's family, and he suspects foul play. For the past 20 years, the Bradley family has had few answers and little information. Authorities have yet to convict anyone or find the girls. That's why Shalia works tirelessly to keep her niece's names and pictures at the forefront of people's minds. She also assists other families to help find their missing children. All the while hoping one day she'll bring Tionda and Diamond home. There are glimmers of hope, though. Shalia thought she found Tionda at a grocery store one time.
We got a tip in South Carolina that the girl working at the Piggly Wiggly might be Tionda. And, of course, I jump in the car, drive to South Carolina, sit outside the grocery store stalking her until finally I got tired. I said, I'm just going in. I had been out there like 5 hours. And I went in, walked up to the girl, can I see your ears? And she looking at me like I'm crazy. But, I understand it. But I needed to know, and I needed to see her ears because Tionda's ears are very distinctive. Though she had features of Tionda, I needed to confirm because many years had passed by. And I'm asking her to roll up your sleeve.
Tionda has a scar on her left forearm.
The manager came out, and the manager get into it, then the police come. I show them the poster, the flyers, and, the sheriff verified that girl been there since she was born because it was a small town. And so I say, well, I'll just leave tomorrow. And he says, no, you're not staying the night in this town, and escorted me out of town.
The family has also had to deal with hoaxes. The most recent was in 2019 when a Texas woman claimed she was Tionda.
She was homeless, living in a tent, using the city's internet. Well, should I say anybody's open internet. And she decided to fabricate that lie, and send pictures that look kind of similar to what I believe my nieces would have resembled. And it was just something about it over the years that I've learned how to discern and how to find out information, even going outside of the FBI, police, and the private investigator. I've learned a lot of technical things in order to be able to determine the likelihood of what's being said. I'll put it that way, to protect myself. By the next day, I had determined that was not Tionda, neither was that diamond. But, of course, the FBI, they get involved, and they did find her. And they found her in that, squattling situation, and she had children. And, I could have pressed charges, to make an example out of somebody. But you don't separate young children from their mother because their mother got a stupid ingredient in that pot of hers. So instead of pressing charges, she was advised.
Despite these disappointments and setbacks, Shalia refuses to give up hope. She has dedicated her life to finding her nieces, and the Bradley family holds a vigil for the girls every year.
In my heart, if Tionda had a way of contacting us, she would have. And that's what bothers me the most. But then you think about the girls in Ohio. They're alive and can't contact us. So you just pray, and you just pray for revelation. But I just know that somebody who took those girls were very familiar with their mom. Whether if it was a love interest, ex-boyfriend, disgruntled ex-boyfriend, somebody who knew their mom took those kids. And whoever they are, they follow everything I do. I'm sure they do. But just do the right thing. The day is going to run out.
And Natalie, too, frustrated that there hasn't been a resolution.
I thought with all of these investigations, with all of these, the reminders and the vigils and the aunt's persistence and just the community being so upset about it, and the name coming up every year, the names, I should say, and the Bradley sisters, and how could this be? I can't imagine as a human being, as now a mom, as an aunt, as a sister, how they live with that every single year, the family members, and even the little girl's friends. How do they live and put one foot in front of the other and still have faith to help find them? That's got to be so difficult, and I applaud them for being able to do that. At the same time, it makes me very sad. I think that, you don't have to be a mom or an aunt. You just have to be human to feel the pain of those family members who are still looking.
Despite her pain and frustration, Shalia pushes forward every day in the search for Tionda and Diamond, hoping one day she'll bring them home.
Asking God to make somebody talk. Let us get that vital tip. Let somebody help me the way I'm helping somebody else.
And if you could talk to your nieces today, what would you say? What's the message you want to share with them?
Just tell me where you're at. I'll come. Just tell me where you're at. Whether it's high or hell. Contact your auntie. I'll come.
Tionda Bradley was 10 years old when she went missing July 6, 2001 from her Southside Chicago home. At the time of her disappearance, Tionda was described as a light-skinned black girl with a burn scar the size of a quarter on her left forearm. Today, she would be 30 years old. An age-progressed photo shows what Tionda would look like today. She has the same dark, shiny eyes and thick, dark hair pulled back into a ponytail. Her little sister, Diamond Bradley, was just 3 at the time of the disappearance. She'll be 24 this November. Diamond is described as having a scar on the left side of her hairline and has deep-set eyes. Her age-progressed photo shows a young woman with medium complexion, short, straight hair, dark brown eyes, and full lips. Photos of the girls at the time they went missing and those age progression photos are available at FBI.gov. Anyone with information about the Bradley sisters' disappearance is asked to call Chicago police. That number, 312-745-6007, or the FBI at 312-431-1333. You can also call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. The family is still offering a $30,000 reward.